Wendy Bounds better watch out. I'm hosting Off Duty today, and we're here at New York's Radio City Music Hall to talk football. Come join me. That's the stage of New York's famous Radio City Music Hall, where 1 week from today, the 2012 NFL Draft will take place. I'm Evan Newmark. Join me and a panel of ace Wall Street Journal sports reporters for our preview of the 2012 NFL Draft. Coming up now. Gentlemen, welcome to Radio City Music Hall. A lot of excitement. Do you feel the excitement, though, even though we're a week away?
Well, it's a little empty. I don't know how exciting that is at this point, but yes, we're closing it.
Now, the purpose of the NFL Draft, as I understand it, is to kind of reinforce competitive parity amongst NFL teams. And so every year, the team that ends up last is the one that gets the first pick in the following year. Question, Darren, does the draft do what it's supposed to do?
Exhibit A, the Detroit Lions, my hometown team. A few years ago, they went 0-16, as you might remember. It wasn't overnight, but now look at the Lions. They're one of the most exciting teams in the league. Calvin Johnson, big receiver on the outside. Matthew Stafford. Those were high picks that finally worked out after so many years of taking the wrong guy, taking Charles Rogers.
So you think it does work?
Absolutely.
Kevin, if Andrew Luck goes as well as is widely expected to the Colts, can he turn that franchise around?
Absolutely.
One man?
Absolutely, and the parity works better some years than in others. This was a very good year to be back. Andrew Luck was probably a franchise savior. The Colts, by virtue of being so horrible last year, get him, and he will turn him around in about 2 years. You know, it doesn't happen overnight, like Darren said. I think that in 2 or 3 years, I think they'll be competing for a playoff spot if all goes to plan. I think the Redskins, they traded up to the second pick to get Robert Griffin. I think they'll have the same sort of transformation, but maybe over 4 years span.
So you guys, I get the sentiment here, Jeff. I want to hear a dissenting view. I get the sentiment that you are believers in the draft system that the NFL has created.
Well, I mean, Darren, there's a flip side to the Lions argument, because you could argue the Lions were bad for so long because they didn't know how to draft. And every year they would just take the best wide receiver, who was usually terrible. It was Mike Williams, Charles Rogers. And then they finally cashed in with Calvin Johnson. I think after taking 19 wide receivers, they got a good one. And then they turned their franchise
Are there
around.
certain teams that are known as particularly good at the draft and others that are known as bad? Let's talk about the Jets. The Jets' track record is pretty spotty.
The Jets are terrible. Every time the Jets take a player, they'll show a shot of the crowd, and everyone will go, "Who?"
So out of curiosity, you know, full disclosure here, Jeff is a
I'm a
Jets
fan.
Have you ever been one of those hooligans?
I've never
here?
gone to the draft, but I've definitely at home had that sentiment.
Because that's what it always is. It's Jets fans and Eagles fans, basically.
Right. I mean, the Jets set the precedent by famously taking Kenny O'Brien over Dan Marino.
That's a Kenny who? That's a Kenny who?
Kenny O'Brien.
Kenny.
Well, he wasn't terrible. I liked Kenny O'Brien.
Have the Jets ever requested they move the draft to Seattle or something?
I don't know.
So
I think it's the
10,000
pressure,
Jet fans
and
don't show
they
up and
took
boo?
Kyle Brady over when all the Jet fans in the world wanted Warren Sapp. They were chanting Warren Sapp's name, you know,
and
they
the
took
famous
Kyle Brady.
Jeff Lageman.
Yep,
Like,
there's a lot of them.
Before we get lost in this nostalgia, the draft has become a bit of a circus now. I mean, there's a lot of hoopla. This place, the Radio City Music Hall, will be filled to the brim with lots of fans for 3 days. You know, the various hotels in New York will be filled with media, with agents, with the players. Has it become too much of a spectacle today? Or does it basically get, you know, we give it what it deserves?
You know what? I think that the first day with the prime time, that seemed like a natural sort of ascension, because before it was just you'd get up at like around, what, 11 a.m. or so?
11 a.m., yeah.
We just go all day. The second day is kind of a weird deal because it's like, you know, all of the attention's on just who's going to go in the first round, especially this year, those first couple picks, well, not the first couple picks, but then what's going to happen with Minnesota and Cleveland. So by the second day, I don't know. There's not quite as much.
The excitement has waned.
That weeds down. That's for the diehards only.
Right, absolutely. And it used to be you'd wake up again at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and it was almost like the draft was a secret. Nobody was really following. It felt like you were at a Talking Heads concert or something like that. And so you had to really be like a diehard to just follow it all. And now it's become just much more of a spectacle.
Jeff, who has the power? Who has the power? When you come to a draft, there's the NFL as an organization, there are the owners and the individual teams, then there are the players with their agents. When you walk around here, you know, come next Thursday, who's going to be the ones who really feel like, you know what, I'm the one with the authority?
Well, I think it's sort of different for each team. I mean, they always show that famous shot of the war room where it's a bunch of guys sitting around just with clipboards and bulletin boards and pointing things. But, I mean, I think each team's different. There's a decision maker for each team. And obviously, there's a talent factor here because some teams are just better at it than others. There was a famous incident a couple years ago where a team didn't get their pick in on time. And it was a huge blunder.
Right.
And so, you know, obviously that's an example.
Let's talk about the situation, because the draft, it's hard to explain. I had some people in the office earlier today were trying to explain to me how it works. What if Andrew Luck doesn't want to go to the Colts? Now, my understanding is he does, but let's just say he didn't, as Eli Manning didn't want to go to the Chargers a few years ago. When that's the case, how does this get worked out? Is it a legal process? Is it just about the money? How does the NFL manage to work it out?
Well, they work out a trade. I mean, obviously, it's not a situation this year. We all know what's going to happen with Andrew Luck and then with our Robert Griffin III going next to Washington. But, right, you saw what happened with Eli Manning. Obviously, years ago, there was Elway, who was supposed to go to the Colts, I believe.
Yeah.
And, yeah, teams will work it out because they realize that there's just too much value that would be wasted there if they try to bring in a guy who isn't going to sign.
Let's talk about the money. What kind of money is Andrew Luck going to be looking at come, you know, a couple of days from now? And have the numbers already been agreed between them and the Colts?
Well, it's a lot less than it was 2 years ago. Before the lockout last year, players could get whatever they wanted. So sometimes they were getting $40, $50 million. They were becoming some of the highest paid players before they even played a snap in the NFL. Now they kind of fixed that problem. You're looking at around, I think, $20 million for the first pick. Significantly less than that as you go on, and so it's much more structured than it used to be, and that really favors the owners and the teams, because it used to be the first overall pick was a very expensive mistake to make.
Kind of the Sam Bradford rule, because remember, players were kind of annoyed at like how much money he got coming out of Oklahoma, hadn't really proven anything, and you know he still might be a decent player eventually, but yeah, I mean, I think it's for the best, both for the teams and
do
the players.
Franchises, Jeff, live and die by the draft? I mean, there are lots of teams that get by. I mean, lots of teams make bad draft or they make a draft choice that you never hear of again, and the team can still go on and march to the Super Bowl, and it doesn't make a difference.
I mean, I think team building is very complicated. There are other ways to do it. You don't have to use the draft to build a good team, but you know, look at the famous pick of taking Tom Brady that late. That turned around the Patriots. You could argue that was the most important pick in the last 15 years.
How much of this is luck? I mean, I know
Andrew?
that before, well, no. I know when the teams go in, they've done, you know, there are all these tests that are taken. There's all sorts of film tapes and exercises, and they go to various camps, and there's a huge amount of evaluation. The athletes that are drafted by the NFL are probably the most picked over athletes in the history of mankind. And yet, sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they get it wrong. How much luck is involved
I don't
here?
think there's any question. There's a lot of luck involved. I mean, if you look at the success rate, especially with picking quarterbacks high in the draft, it's part of the reason why I think that like quarterbacks are a little, this sounds blasphemous, but a little overvalued. If you look at how many busts there have been so high in the draft, you don't even have to go back all the way to Ryan Leaf. There are just so many other cases, Achilles Smith, where quarterbacks get chosen so high, and they seem to have proven so much in college, and then they can't even play at this level.
Let's turn to this draft, this year, 2012. The first and second draft pick, as we talked about earlier, probably done deals.
Yep.
What about number 3 and number 4, in particular, Cleveland? Who's Cleveland going to go for? And how does the effect of whoever they pick knock on through the rest of the draft? Kevin, you have any views on that?
Well, I think it depends on the trade situation. I think that 3 or 4 could go Ryan Tannehill, who's the quarterback at Texas A&M. I think the NFL is going quarterback crazy this year, and so he may, rise above where he should be picked just because someone needs a quarterback.
Where he should be picked. So where do you think he should go?
I don't know if he's a top 10 pick.
Really?
I mean, I think that he doesn't have the production. I mean, he played wide receiver in college for a brief period. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there, and he has the tools, but I think wasting the 3rd pick or the 4th pick is a real big risk.
Are you sandbagging right now because your Dolphins are down there at 8,
Yeah,
He's hoping. He's hoping.
The reason I have this job is just to get the Dolphins good players.
So, Jeff, what do you think about 3 and 4? They have Matt Khalil, I think. Is that, am I getting him right?
Yeah.
He would be tight end, right?
No, offensive line.
Offensive line, okay, I'm sorry.
I think Minnesota will take him. I think that's a no-brainer. I think they have a great running back in Adrian Peterson. They already did their crazy quarterback pick, which was last year when they took Christian Ponder. So they now need, an offensive lineman to help those 2 guys out. And then I think the Browns can do a lot of things, but I think they'll take Trent Richardson. I think they need to score points. They definitely have a good defense. They just have no offense right now, so they need an explosive, game-changing player, and that seems to be a solid pick for them.
But then do they go for a quarterback later?
It's all a question of how loyal they are to Colt McCoy, whether they think he has it or not. Personally,
Would you be loyal to Colt McCoy?
Personally, I don't know if it's quite there. So they might be wise to take a quarterback.
Let's talk about a few high-profile teams. Let's talk about the Broncos. The Broncos have now brought on board, after a lot of controversy, Peyton Manning. What are the Broncos going to do in order to get Manning the ring that he's going there purportedly for?
Ring? Really, I think the Broncos are going to be in contention, obviously, in the West, but I think a ring is it's going out a little far.
I don't know. I mean, I think this year I've heard that they're going to start targeting defensive tackles. I think that they think that, Manning builds an offense himself. He did it in Indianapolis with some of the most anonymous receivers you've ever seen, and they became perennial Pro Bowlers. And so I think they think that getting a defense around him is the way to get the ring.
They need a receiver. And they're a little light there as well.
What, Eric Decker is in the future Hall of Fame?
Okay, let's turn to two predictions. Number one, I want your sleeper, i.e. the pick people are gonna go, wow, that's a good pick. Darren, what do you got?
Kellen Moore, which if anybody out there knows,
where does he play?
Boise State quarterback. He's been there a million years, won a ton of games. I think he set the NCAA record all time for wins. And he's probably going to go at the very end of the draft, probably around maybe the 6th round. And I just feel like he's a guy who, I think that like we sort of have this natural tendency in the NFL, like as if I'm in the NFL, this tendency to just sort of assume that guys who don't have the killer arm strength can't do it. And I think that's one of the reasons people look at Moore, and also the fact that he played in a lesser conference.
Okay,
but
no, we don't need a whole lecture about a 6th round draft pick.
I'm trying to explain it to you.
Kevin,
this
who do you like? Who do you like?
I just want him to keep talking about Kellen Moore.
He's also a lefty.
Who do you like?
Lefties. Same as me, by the way.
Who do you like?
I like Tommy Streeter, the wide receiver out of the University of Miami. He's pegged as a 3rd or 4th round pick. He's 6'5". The knock on him is production, but I think he had some horrible quarterbacks at Miami. You can't look at production when you're looking at that. And I just think he has the speed, and I think that he has the tools to play in the NFL. I think everyone's overlooking him essentially because he had one good season, but I think there's so many variables in college.
Jeff, who do you like?
I like LaMichael James, the running back out of Oregon. He's a huge star in college. Frankly, I don't understand why he's not being talked about more. The knock on him is that he's short. He's like 5'9", but I think if you look at the NFL right now, a lot of short guys are doing great.
What about Danny Woodhead? Come on,
yeah, you got Darren Sproles.
Was Danny Woodhead even drafted? Probably not.
No.
Probably not. No. Okay, final prediction. Final prediction. What team will come out having done the worst job at the draft, Darren?
That's a good question.
Oh boy.
Man. I think the Browns.
The Browns.
I think they got a tough decision to make there at 4, and I think they're probably going to go the wrong way in assuming that McCoy is their guy.
My guess is the Redskins. They gave up a lot to get Robert Griffin. I don't know if Robert Griffin is that sort of franchise quarterback, and they're not going to have the picks later in the draft.
Jeff, tell me the Jets.
I just have to say the Jets.
Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Jeff Foster, Kevin Clark, and Darren Everson from the Wall Street Journal Sports Desk, thanks for your input. We look forward to the NFL Draft, which will be taking place right here 1 week from today at the Radio City Music Hall.